Poor girl stays silent at the school's Christmas party until the young billionaire discovers why and does something unexpected. The school gymnasium was transformed. Red and gold garlands hung from the ceiling, and the smell of gingerbread cookies lingered in the air. Children ran back and forth, their laughter echoing off the walls decorated with drawings of reindeer and snowmen. It was the Christmas party the whole community looked forward to all year. Ethan adjusted his tie and observed the scene before him. At 35, he'd achieved everything he had ever dreamed of: a prosperous law firm downtown, an apartment overlooking the park, and a German car that still smelled of new leather. He was there at the principal's request to announce a generous donation his firm would be making to the school. It was the kind of event that looked good in the local papers. The tables were filled with presents wrapped in colorful paper. Parents chatted in small groups, holding cups of hot cider while they watched their children play. The Christmas tree in the center of the gym sparkled with lights that blinked at a steady pace, creating golden reflections on the waxed floor. Ethan checked his watch. He still had 15 minutes before his speech. He decided to walk around the venue, greeting a few people he recognized from the courthouse or social events. Everyone treated him with the respect his position demanded, and he returned it with polite smiles and firm handshakes. That's when he saw her. In the farthest corner of the gym, almost hidden behind a stack of piled-up chairs, was a little girl. She must have been about 7, with blonde hair that reached her shoulders and blue eyes like the winter sky. She wore a simple, navy blue dress that looked like it had been ironed with great care. Her black shoes were polished, but Ethan noticed the soles were worn. What caught his attention wasn't just the girl's isolation, but the way she watched the other children. Her eyes followed every movement, every laugh, every moment of joy, but she didn't approach. She remained there, like a spectator to her own childhood. Ethan noticed something more disturbing. All the other children had presents. Some held small boxes. Others carried colorful bags. The blonde girl, however, had empty hands. Her small palms rested in her lap, and she would glance at them from time to time, as if expecting something to magically appear there. A group of girls ran past her, laughing loudly as they compared their gifts. One had gotten a new doll, still in its box. Another was showing off a board game with its shiny packaging intact. The girl in the corner watched them pass, and Ethan saw her shoulders slump slightly. Something stirred inside him, a strange, almost forgotten feeling. It had been years since he had felt that tightness in his chest, that inexplicable urge to act without thinking about the consequences or personal benefits. The Christmas music played loudly through the speakers, but even so, Ethan managed to hear when the girl started talking to herself. He discreetly moved closer, pretending to adjust a nearby decoration. "Santa Claus forgot about me," she murmured, looking sadly at her own empty hands. Grace lowered her head even more, and her next words came out as a whisper filled with disappointment. "I didn't get anything." The words hit Ethan like a punch to the gut. He had heard many sad stories in his career, had dealt with complicated divorces and heart-wrenching custody battles. But something in that little girl's voice, in the pure and simple sadness of her words, completely disarmed him. She wasn't crying loudly. She wasn't being dramatic or seeking attention. She was simply verbalizing, with the cruel honesty that only children possess, the fact that she had been forgotten, that she wasn't important enough for Santa Claus to remember her. Ethan looked around, searching for the girl's parents. He saw couples chatting, mothers organizing their children's backpacks, fathers taking pictures, but no one seemed to be paying attention to the girl in the corner. No one seemed to notice she was there, alone, with a broken heart. The principal, Mrs. Henderson, appeared at his side, holding a microphone. "Mr. Carter, are you ready for your speech?" she asked with a professional smile. Ethan discreetly pointed to the girl. "Who is she?" Mrs. Henderson followed his gaze and sighed. "Grace Williams, one of our best students, actually. Very polite. Always does her homework, but her mother is going through a tough time. Amanda has been unemployed for a few months. They're living on benefits and some temporary jobs she finds here and there." Ethan watched Grace again. The girl had found a piece of paper on the floor and was folding it carefully, creating small figures. Her fingers worked with precision, turning something ordinary into art. It was a way to distract herself, he realized. A way to not think about what was happening around her. Did her mother not come to the party? He asked. Amanda is unemployed, so sometimes she has to go out for job interviews or deal with benefits paperwork. She should be here in a few minutes to pick Grace up. Mrs. Henderson seemed genuinely concerned about the situation, but she also had a whole party to manage. Other parents were approaching, wanting to talk to her about various matters. "Can I have their address?" Ethan asked impulsively. The principal looked at him, surprised. "The address? May I ask why?" Ethan didn't have a clear answer. He didn't know exactly what he planned to do. All he knew was that he couldn't leave there and simply forget that little girl. He couldn't go back to his silent apartment and pretend he hadn't heard Grace say that Santa Claus forgot about her, that she hadn't gotten anything. "I'd like to help," he said simply. Mrs. Henderson studied him for a moment. She had known Ethan for a few years, ever since he started making regular donations to the school. He had always been professional, cordial, but distant. This was the first time she had seen him show personal interest in a specific situation. "They live at Maple Street Apartments, Building C, Apartment 23, she said finally. "It's a simpler complex, but clean and safe. Amanda is a good mother, Mr. Carter. She's just going through a difficult time." Ethan nodded, committing the information to memory. "Thank you." At that moment, Grace looked up and saw him watching her. For an instant, their eyes met. She didn't look away immediately, as most children would when being watched by a stranger. Instead, she studied him with curiosity, tilting her head slightly to the side. Ethan smiled at her, a small but genuine smile. Grace hesitated for a moment, then returned a shy wave of her hand. It was a simple gesture, but it carried a dignity that impressed Ethan. Even alone, even forgotten by Santa Claus, she still had the manners to greet a stranger who had been kind. "Mr. Carter," Mrs. Henderson called again. "The people are waiting." Ethan forced himself to turn away from Grace and followed the principal to the small, improvised stage. The microphone screeched as he adjusted it, causing all conversations to cease. Dozens of faces turned toward him, awaiting his rehearsed speech about corporate social responsibility and investing in education. But as he spoke about his firm's donation, about the importance of supporting future generations, his eyes kept returning to the corner where Grace remained seated. She had stopped making paper figures and was now watching him speak. Her small hands crossed in her lap. The speech that usually flowed automatically felt stilted. Ethan found himself hesitating between sentences, losing his train of thought. The words about investing in the future and social responsibility sounded hollow when he looked at Grace. She represented exactly the kind of child he was supposedly helping, yet there she was, alone and without a gift. When he finished his speech, he received polite applause and the usual congratulations. Several people approached him to talk business, to schedule meetings, to discuss other projects. Ethan responded to everything automatically. His mind split between the social conventions he knew by heart and the girl who remained alone. A young woman rushed into the gym, clearly late and flustered. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a hurried ponytail, and she wore simple but clean clothes. It was Amanda, Ethan realized immediately from the resemblance to Grace. The woman looked around quickly until she found her daughter. Her face lit up with relief, but Ethan also noticed a shadow of sadness when she saw that Grace was alone, without any present. Amanda approached her daughter, knelt beside her, and hugged her. "Sorry I'm late, sweetie. I had to take care of some important things today." "It's okay, Mommy," Grace replied, her voice small but trying to sound cheerful. Just the party was nice. Ethan watched the interaction. There was so much love between mother and daughter, so much tenderness in that simple hug, but there was also an unspoken sadness, an awareness that this party would be different from the others, that they would go home empty-handed while other families carried bags full of presents. Amanda noticed the other children had presents, and her eyes filled with restrained tears. She hugged Grace tighter, as if she could protect her from disappointment through pure love. "Let's go home, my princess," Amanda said softly. "Can I take my drawing?" Grace asked, showing the paper figures she had made. "Of course you can." "It's beautiful." Amanda helped Grace get her coat and backpack. They said a polite goodbye to Mrs. Henderson and started walking toward the exit. Grace waved to a few classmates, who waved back distractedly, more interested in their own gifts. Ethan watched them leave. Before she walked out, Grace looked back and met his gaze once more. She smiled shyly and waved again. Amanda noticed the interaction and looked at Ethan with curiosity but said nothing. The gym door closed behind them, and Ethan suddenly felt empty. The party continued around him. Children still played, parents still chatted, but something had changed. That little girl and her words about Santa Claus forgetting her had planted something in his heart that he could no longer ignore. The rest of the party passed in a blur. Ethan fulfilled his social obligations, accepted compliments on his speech, and exchanged business cards. But his mind was elsewhere, picturing a blue-eyed girl who had gone home without a single Christmas present. Later that night, in his silent apartment, Ethan couldn't get Grace out of his head. As he ate dinner alone, watching the news on television, he kept thinking about her blue eyes, about the way she had said she didn't get anything, without bitterness, just with a resigned sadness. He got up and went to the window, looking out at the city lights. Down below, people walked the streets carrying Christmas shopping bags, heading home to their families. Ethan had built a successful life, but he suddenly wondered if he had built an empty one. His apartment was immaculate, decorated by an expensive interior designer. Everything was in its right place. Everything was high quality. But there was no human warmth there, no children's laughter, no drawings stuck to the fridge, no one to ask how his day was. At the Maple Street apartments, not far from there, Grace was probably getting ready for bed. Maybe she was still thinking about the Santa who had forgotten her, or maybe she had already found a way to accept one more disappointment in her young life. Ethan imagined Amanda tucking her daughter into bed, trying to explain why Santa hadn't brought her anything. He imagined the comforting words a mother says when she doesn't have the money to buy what she wants for her child. Ethan made a decision. He didn't know exactly what he would do, but he knew he couldn't just move on and forget. Tomorrow, he would visit the Maple Street apartments. Tomorrow, he would do something to show Grace that she hadn't been forgotten. For the first time in years, Ethan Carter had a plan that didn't involve profit, professional recognition, or personal gain. He had a plan that just involved making a 7-year-old girl truly smile. And that, somehow, inexplicably, felt like the most important thing he had ever decided to do. Ethan woke up earlier than usual. The morning sun streamed through his apartment curtains, but he had been awake for an hour, staring at the ceiling and thinking about Grace. Her words echoed in his mind. "Santa Claus forgot about me. I didn't get anything." He got up, took a quick shower and put on casual clothes. For the first time in years, he didn't wear a suit. Dark jeans and a simple shirt seemed more appropriate for what he had in mind. After a light breakfast, Ethan left home with a clear objective. He needed to find the perfect gift for Grace. Not just any gift, but something special. Something that would make her eyes sparkle the way a 7-year-old's should. The first toy store he visited was huge and filled with options. Aisles and aisles of dolls, games, stuffed animals, and electronic toys. Ethan walked slowly, looking at everything carefully. He wanted something that suited Grace, something she could truly love. That's when he saw it. In the doll aisle, on a shelf at eye level, was a beautiful doll. It had wavy blonde hair, just like Grace's, and blue eyes that looked real. But what caught Ethan's attention most was the dress, a delicate light blue dress with small white lace details. He picked up the box and examined the doll more closely. It was perfect, not too big, not too small. It had a sweet and gentle face, and something in the doll's painted smile reminded him of the shy smile Grace had given him at the party. "Can I help you?" asked an employee who approached him. "This doll, is it special in any way?" The woman smiled. "Oh, that's one of our favorites. It's made with great care, has clothes that can be changed, and even comes with a few accessories. The girls love it because they can brush her hair and take care of her like a real baby. Ethan nodded. It was exactly what he was looking for. I'll take this one. Would you like it gift wrapped? Yes, please. It's for a very special little girl. While he waited for the gift to be wrapped, Ethan thought about how he would introduce himself to Amanda. He couldn't just show up at their door like a stranger bearing gifts. He needed an explanation that made sense, one that wouldn't frighten Grace's mother. The employee returned with the box wrapped in gold paper with red ribbons. It looked beautiful, exactly as a Christmas present should. I'm sure she'll love it, the employee said. Ethan hoped so. The Maple Street apartments were just as Mrs. Henderson had described, simple, tall, but clean and safe. It was a complex of 3 buildings, each 4 stories high. Building C was at the back, near a small playground where a few children were playing. Ethan found apartment 23 on the 2nd floor. He stood in front of the door for a moment, holding the gift and taking a deep breath. He didn't know exactly how this conversation would go, but he knew he was doing the right thing. He knocked on the door softly. A few seconds later, he heard footsteps on the other side. The door opened just a few inches, still secured by the safety chain. Yes, it was Amanda's voice. Mrs. Williams, my name is Ethan Carter. I was at the school's Christmas party yesterday. Amanda opened the door a little wider but kept the chain on. You're the lawyer who gave the speech. Yes, I'd like to talk to you about Grace, if possible. There was a pause. Ethan could see the concern in Amanda's eyes. It was natural for her to be cautious. She didn't know Ethan, and he was showing up at her home the day after the party. Did something happen at school? Did Grace do something wrong? No, Ethan said quickly. Grace did nothing wrong. In fact, it's the opposite. Could I explain better if you'll let me? Amanda hesitated for a few more seconds, then closed the door to remove the chain and opened it completely. Please, come in. The apartment was small but cozy. The living room was simple, with a sofa that had seen better days, but it was clean and tidy. There were a few drawings taped to the wall, clearly made by Grace. A small artificial Christmas tree decorated a corner of the room, with no presents underneath. Grace, Amanda called, we have a visitor. Grace came running from what must have been her room. When she saw Ethan, her eyes widened in surprise, but she smiled shyly. Hi, she said softly. Hi, Grace. Do you remember me from the party yesterday? She nodded. You gave the speech on the stage. That's right, Grace. I brought something for you. Ethan showed her the wrapped gift. The girl's eyes widened even more, and she looked at her mother, as if asking for permission. Mr. Carter, Amanda began, clearly confused. I don't understand. Please, let me explain, Ethan said gently. Diakin yesterday at the party. I saw her sitting alone. I noticed she didn't have a present, and it deeply touched me. Amanda blushed, clearly embarrassed. We're going through some financial difficulties. I wanted to buy her something, but... You don't need to explain, Ethan interrupted softly. I understand. And that's why I decided to do something about it. He knelt in front of Grace, getting down to her eye level. Grace, do you remember what you said yesterday about Santa Claus? She nodded sadly. That he forgot about me. Well, it turns out I'm a friend of Santa's, Ethan said with a mysterious smile. And he told me there was a little problem with the gift delivery yesterday. Some presents got lost on the way. Grace's eyes lit up. Really? Really? And he asked me to deliver this special gift to you. He said you were a very good girl this year and deserved something special. Ethan held out the gift to Grace. She looked at her mother again, who nodded with tears in her eyes. Grace took the gift carefully as if it were made of glass. Her small hands trembled slightly as she tore off the golden paper. When she opened the box and saw the doll, Grace let out a cry of joy. She's beautiful, she exclaimed, taking the doll out of the box. Look, Mommy. She has hair just like mine. I knew he hadn't forgotten me, Grace said, hugging the doll against her chest. Amanda covered her mouth with her hands, trying to hold back the tears. Ethan stood up and saw she was emotional. Mr. Carter, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. Seeing her smile is enough. Grace was examining every detail of the doll, touching the blue dress with admiration. "What's her name?" Grace asked. "Well, Santa said you could choose the name," Ethan replied. Grace thought for a moment. "I'll call her Hope because she brought hope to me." The girl's words struck Ethan straight in the heart. Amanda approached him. "Mr. Carter, this is incredibly kind of you. I don't know how to thank you." "There's no need to thank me. It's Christmas after all." "Would you like some coffee?" Amanda offered. "It's not much, but I'd be delighted." While Amanda prepared the coffee, Ethan sat on the sofa and watched Grace play with her new doll. She was talking softly to Hope, telling her about her home and introducing her to every corner of the apartment. "Do you have children, Mr. Carter?" Amanda asked from the small kitchen. "No, I've never been married." "Then, how did you know how to pick the perfect gift?" Ethan thought about the question. "I guess it was instinct. When I saw her yesterday, something inside me stirred. I couldn't stop thinking about her." Amanda returned with 2 simple cups of coffee. She sat next to Ethan on the sofa. "Grace has always been a special girl. Even with all the hardships we've faced, she's never lost her sweetness. How did you get into this situation, if you don't mind me asking?" Amanda sighed. "I used to work as a receptionist at a medical clinic. It was a good, stable job. But the clinic closed 4 months ago. Since then, I've been looking for work, but it's been difficult. We live on government benefits and some temporary jobs when I can get them." "And Grace's father?" Amanda's face hardened slightly. "He left us when Grace was 3. Said he wasn't ready to be a father. We've never seen him again." Ethan nodded, understanding the situation better. She was a single mother struggling alone to raise her daughter. "Do you have any specific experience, besides reception?" "I worked for a few years as an administrative assistant before Grace was born. I have basic computer skills, file organization, customer service." Ethan filed that information away in his mind. Maybe he could help in ways other than gifts. Grace approached them, still holding Hope. "Mommy, can I show Hope my room?" "Of course, sweetie." Grace took Ethan's hand. "Do you want to see too?" "I made a special place for her to sleep." Ethan looked at Amanda, who nodded with a smile. "I'd love to see." Grace's room was small, but it was lovingly arranged. There was a single bed with a floral bedspread, a small table that served as a desk, and a few shelves with books and some old toys. Grace ran to the bed and showed a corner where she had arranged a small pillow and a little blanket. "Look, I made a little bed for Hope right here next to my bed, so she won't be scared in the dark." "What a wonderful idea," Ethan said. "I'm sure Hope will love sleeping there." Grace placed the doll in the small makeshift bed and covered her carefully with the blanket. "Now she's home," Grace said with satisfaction. They returned to the living room, where Amanda was finishing cleaning up the coffee cups. "Mr. Carter, again, thank you for this. You have no idea what this means to Grace, and to me. Actually, I should be the one thanking you. It's been a long time since I've felt this. Satisfaction in doing something for someone." Amanda studied him for a moment. "You seem like a lonely man, if you don't mind me saying." Ethan chuckled softly. "You're not wrong. I spent so much time building my career that I forgot to build a personal life." "And what made you stop and notice Grace yesterday?" "Honestly, I don't know. Maybe it was the way she accepted the situation. She wasn't being dramatic or seeking attention. She just accepted that she had been forgotten. That broke my heart." Just then, Grace returned from the kitchen with a glass of water. "Mr. Carter, are you going to come back and visit Hope and me?" Ethan glanced at Amanda, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. "If your mother doesn't mind, I'd love to come back." "Of course, you can come back," Amanda said. "It would be a pleasure to have you." Ethan stayed for another hour, talking with them. Grace showed him her drawings, told him about school, and introduced all her other toys to Hope. It was clear the doll had already become her most precious treasure. When Ethan prepared to leave, Grace ran up to him and hugged him. "Thank you for delivering my present from Santa Claus." "It was my pleasure, Grace." Amanda walked him to the door. "Mr. Carter, Ethan, thank you again. You have no idea what you've done for us today." Actually, I think you've done more for me than I have for you." A few days passed, and Ethan couldn't stop thinking about Grace and Amanda. During his meetings at the office, while reviewing contracts and attending to clients, his mind constantly returned to the small apartment on Maple Street. He thought of Grace's smile as she hugged Hope, of Amanda's genuine gratitude, of the simplicity and warmth of that home. On a Thursday afternoon, he decided to visit them again. This time, however, he wanted to bring something practical. He had noticed their refrigerator was small and there wasn't much food on the kitchen shelves. Ethan stopped at the grocery store and put together a basket of groceries. Fresh fruit, milk, bread, some canned goods, cereal, and a few special treats like cookies and juice. He didn't want to overdo it and make Amanda feel like it was charity, but he wanted to help in a practical way. When he arrived at apartment 23, he knocked on the door and waited. He heard running footsteps on the other side. "Mommy, it's Ethan!" Grace shouted excitedly. The door opened and Grace appeared with a huge smile, holding Hope. "Ethan, you came back!" "Hi, Grace. Of course I came back. I promised I'd visit you and Hope, didn't I?" Grace took his free hand, practically dragging him into the apartment. "Come see. I made a new bed for Hope, and she already has 3 different dresses." Amanda appeared from the kitchen, drying her hands on a dish towel. "Ethan, what a nice surprise. Please, come in." "I brought a few things," he said, showing her the basket of groceries. Amanda's face changed slightly, as a mix of gratitude and embarrassment. "Ethan, you didn't have to." "I know I didn't have to. I wanted to." Grace let go of Hope for a moment and ran to Ethan, examining the basket. "What yummy things. Mommy, look, he brought those cookies I like." Amanda approached and saw the contents of the basket. Ethan noticed her eyes quickly fill with restrained tears. "Ethan, this is very generous. It's just a way of returning your hospitality." Grace started pulling his hand again. "Come see Hope's new bed. I made it with a shoebox and some scraps of cloth Mom gave me." In Grace's room, Ethan was impressed by the girl's creativity. She had turned a shoebox into a perfect little bed for the doll, with small pillows made from scraps and a tiny, hand-sewn quilt. "Who did this sewing?" Ethan asked, impressed. "I did. Mommy taught me. She's really good at sewing." "Is she? Does your mum sew professionally?" "Not anymore," Grace said sadly, "but she used to make beautiful clothes. Now she only sews for me sometimes." Ethan filed that information away, another skill Amanda had that could be useful. They returned to the living room, where Amanda was putting the groceries away in the kitchen. "Grace, why don't you show Ethan the new drawings you made?" Grace ran to get a folder with her drawings. They were very good for a 7-year-old. Some were of her family, her and her mum, others of school, and several were of Hope in different situations. "You draw very well," Ethan said sincerely. "My teacher says I have a special talent." Amanda joined them on the sofa. "Grace has always been artistic. She draws, sews, creates things. She has an incredible imagination, just like her mother from what I can see." Amanda blushed slightly. "I try to encourage her creativity, even without much money for supplies. We always find a way." Ethan spent the rest of the afternoon with them, talking, watching Grace play with Hope, and getting to know Amanda better. He discovered she was an intelligent, determined woman who loved her daughter above all else. He also realized that, despite the difficulties, they had created a home full of love and creativity. When he got ready to leave, Grace hugged him again. "Are you going to come back again?" "If you'll have me, yes." "We'll have you," Grace answered immediately, looking to her mother for confirmation. "You're always welcome here," Amanda said, and Ethan could see she meant it. At the door, Amanda thanked him again. "Ethan, your generosity. Your gesture is sincere, isn't it? You're not doing this out of pity or—" "Amanda," Ethan interrupted her gently, "I'm doing this because you two awakened something in me that I had forgotten existed. It's not pity. It's something much deeper than that." Amanda nodded, seeming to understand. "Thank you, and for everything." As he drove home, Ethan reflected on how his life had changed in just a few days. For the first time in years, He had something to look forward to besides work. He had a reason to smile that didn't involve winning a case or closing a deal. Grace and Amanda had entered his life like an unexpected gift, and Ethan was beginning to realize that maybe he needed them more than they needed him. The phone rang on Christmas Eve morning. Amanda answered with some surprise, as few people ever called her. "Hello? Amanda, it's Ethan. I hope I'm not disturbing you." "Of course not. How are you?" "Well, thank you. Actually, I was calling to extend an invitation. Would you and Grace like to spend Christmas Eve at my house tonight?" Amanda hesitated. She hadn't expected this. "Ethan, that's very kind, but we don't want to impose." "You wouldn't be imposing at all. It would be a pleasure to have you. I have a big, empty house, and, well, it would be much nicer to have company for Christmas." From the background, Amanda heard Grace asking who was on the phone. "It's Ethan, sweetie." "Can I talk to him?" Grace asked excitedly. Amanda passed the phone to her daughter. "Hi, Ethan," Grace said with enthusiasm. "Hi, Grace. How is Hope?" "She's great. She had breakfast with me this morning." "Ethan, do you have a Christmas tree at your house?" "I do. A very big one full of lights." "Hope has never seen a big tree. Can we go see it?" Ethan laughed on the other end of the line. "Of course you can. That's why I'm inviting you over for dinner tonight." Grace covered the phone and whispered to her mother, "Mommy, he has a big tree. Can we go, please?" Amanda smiled and took the phone back. "It seems Grace has already decided for us. So you'll come?" "Yes, we'll come. What time?" "How about 6? I can pick you up." "No need. We can take the bus." "Amanda, please. Let me pick you up. It's Christmas Eve." Amanda relented. "All right, thank you so much, Ethan. The pleasure is all mine. See you at 6. After she hung up, Grace started jumping for joy. "We're going to see the big tree. Hope will be so happy." Amanda smiled, but a worry grew in her chest. She didn't have suitable clothes for dinner at a successful lawyer's house. Everything she owned was simple, second-hand. But Grace was so excited that she didn't have the heart to cancel. For the rest of the day, Grace was restless with anticipation. She gave Hope a bath, brushed the doll's hair, and chose the prettiest dress for her to wear on the special occasion. At 6 o'clock sharp, Ethan knocked on the door. When Amanda opened it, he was holding a small bouquet of flowers. "For you," he said, handing the flowers to Amanda. "Ethan, you shouldn't have." "I wanted to. It's Christmas." Grace came running, holding Hope. She was wearing her best navy blue dress, the same one from the school party. "We're ready," she announced. "You both look beautiful," Ethan said sincerely. Ethan's car was luxurious, but he drove carefully, chatting with Grace, who was sitting in the back seat with Hope. "Is your house far?" Grace asked. "Not too far. It's in a quieter neighborhood, with more trees. Hope wants to know if you have other friends joining us for dinner." Ethan looked in the rearview mirror and saw Grace holding the doll close to her ear, as if listening to a whisper. "Actually, you'll be my only guests. It will be a dinner just for us." "Good," Grace said. "I hope gets shy around a lot of people." Amanda smiled, watching her daughter. Grace had created a whole personality for the doll and treated Hope as if she were a real friend. Ethan's house was in an elegant residential neighborhood. It was a 2-story house with a well-kept garden out front. Christmas lights decorated the windows and entrance. "Wow," Grace exclaimed as they got out of the car. "Your house is like the ones in the movies. Do you like it?" "It's the most beautiful house I've ever seen." Ethan opened the front door and invited them in. The interior was elegant yet welcoming. Amanda noticed everything was impeccably tidy, but didn't feel cold like some rich places she had seen in magazines. "Where's the tree?" Grace asked, looking around. "In the living room. Come on, I'll show you." They walked down the hall until they reached the main room. When Grace saw the Christmas tree, her eyes widened. It was a huge tree, almost touching the high ceiling of the room. It was covered in golden lights that shone like stars, and elegant ornaments hung from every branch. At the base of the tree, there were several wrapped gifts. "Oh my gosh," Grace whispered, as if she were in a church. "Hope, are you seeing this?" She slowly approached the tree as if it were a fragile treasure that might break if she got too close. "Can I touch it?" "Of course you can," Ethan said. Grace reached out her hand and gently touched one of the lower ornaments. It was a silver star that swayed softly with her touch. "It's magical," she murmured. Amanda watched her daughter, emotional. Grace had never seen such a beautiful Christmas tree. The small artificial tree they had at home looked like a toy compared to this one. "Do you like the house?" Ethan asked. "It's wonderful," Amanda replied. "Very elegant. Sometimes it's too big for just one person." Ethan showed them the rest of the house. Grace was especially impressed with the kitchen, which was bigger than their entire living room. "Do you cook on all these stoves?" she asked, pointing to the 6-burner stove. "Actually, I don't cook much. I usually eat out or order in. Mommy is a great cook," Grace said. "She made cookies for me yesterday. I'm sure they're delicious." Dinner was served in the dining room. Ethan had hired a catering service, so the table was set with elegant dishes, and the food was perfect. There was roasted turkey, mashed potatoes, vegetables, and fresh bread. Grace was impressed by the amount of food. "Is this all for us?" "It is. Eat as much as you like." During dinner, Grace talked excitedly, telling stories about school, about hope, and asking questions about Ethan's house. Amanda joined the conversation, but Ethan noticed she was a little tense, probably feeling out of her natural environment. "Amanda, are you comfortable?" he asked softly. "Yes, sorry, it's just, I'm not used to so much elegance. Please, make yourselves at home. That's what I want you to feel." After the main course, Ethan brought out dessert, apple pie with ice cream. Grace ate with delight but saved a little to give to Hope later. When they finished eating, Grace got up from the table and went to where she had left her small backpack. "Ethan, I have something for you." She came back carrying a carefully folded piece of paper. "I made this for you," she said, handing him the paper. Ethan unfolded it and saw a drawing made with crayons. It was him, Amanda, and Grace, holding hands in front of a Christmas tree. At the top of the page, in neatly written letters, was the title, "My New Friend." Ethan's heart tightened. The drawing was simple, but full of affection. Grace had included him as part of her small family. "Grace, it's beautiful. I made it for you to keep," she said shyly. "Because now you're my real friend." Ethan felt his eyes well up with tears. It had been years since someone had considered him a real friend. His life was full of colleagues, acquaintances, and professional contacts, but true friends were rare. "I'll keep it forever," he said, his voice slightly shaky. Amanda was also emotional. She knew her daughter well enough to know that Grace didn't offer her friendship easily. The girl was shy with strangers, but had connected with Ethan in a special way. They moved to the living room, where they sat near the Christmas tree. Grace played with Hope on the rug, creating little adventures where the doll explored the big house. "Ethan," Grace said suddenly, "why do you live alone in such a big house?" Amanda blushed. "Grace, that's a very personal question." "It's okay," Ethan said. "It's a good question. The truth is, I spent so much time working that I forgot to build a family." "You didn't want to have a wife and kids." "I did, yes, but work always came first. And now, well, sometimes I feel lonely." Grace stopped playing and looked at him seriously. "You don't have to be lonely anymore. You can come visit us whenever you want. And can we come here too?" Ethan looked at Amanda, who nodded with a smile. "Of course you can. You're always welcome here." Around 9 o'clock, it started to snow. Just a few flakes at first, but it quickly turned into a heavy snowstorm. Ethan looked out the window with concern. "It's snowing very heavily. Maybe it would be best if you spent the night here." Amanda got up and went to the window. The snow was falling hard, and there was already a thick layer on the ground. "We don't want to impose—" "Amanda, please. I have plenty of rooms, and it would be dangerous to drive in this snow." Grace jumped for joy. "We can sleep at Ethan's house. How cool. Hope will love it." Amanda saw she had no choice. The snow really was too heavy to risk a trip back. "If you're sure it's no bother." "I am absolutely sure." Ethan showed them to the guest room. It was spacious and comfortable, with a double bed and an armchair where Grace could settle in with pillows and blankets. "It's perfect," Amanda said. "I'll get you some clean clothes to use as pajamas." Ethan brought one of his shirts for Amanda and a smaller shirt for Grace. They were too big, but they would work for sleeping. "Thank you for everything, Ethan. This has been the best Christmas Eve Grace has ever had. And for me too," he replied sincerely. When Grace was settled in the armchair with Hope, she called out to Ethan, "Ethan." "Yes?" "Thank you for letting us sleep at your house, and for being our friend. Thank you for making my house less lonely." Grace smiled and snuggled up with Hope. In a few minutes, she was fast asleep. Amanda and Ethan talked quietly for a few minutes. "She really likes you," Amanda said. "Grace doesn't get attached to people easily. She's a special girl. You both are. Ethan, I don't know how to repay all your kindness. You've already repaid me more than you know." The next morning, Amanda woke to the smell of coffee. She got up carefully so as not to wake Grace and went to the kitchen, where she found Ethan making breakfast. "Good morning," she said softly. "Good morning. Did you sleep well?" "Very well, thank you." "Let me help." "No need. It's almost ready." Amanda insisted on helping, and together they prepared a simple breakfast: scrambled eggs, toast, and fresh coffee. It was a domestic scene Ethan hadn't experienced in years. Grace woke up a few minutes later, still holding Hope. "Good morning," she said cheerfully. "Did the snow stop?" They looked out the window. The snow had stopped during the night, but a thick blanket covered everything. "Yes, it stopped," Ethan said, "but the roads are probably still bad for driving." "That's a shame," Grace said, but she didn't sound truly sad. Hope really liked sleeping here. During breakfast, Grace chatted excitedly with Ethan, making plans. "When can we come back?" she asked. "Whenever you want," Ethan replied. "Next weekend." "Grace," Amanda intervened, "we can't abuse Ethan's hospitality." "You would never abuse it. In fact, I'd love it if you came more often." Grace smiled, satisfied. "Did you hear that, Mommy? We can come this weekend." After breakfast, when it was clear the roads were passable again, Ethan prepared to take Amanda and Grace back home. Before they left, he handed Amanda a card. "This is my business card. It has all my contact information. Thank you." "Amanda, can I speak with you privately for a moment?" Grace was busy saying goodbye to the Christmas tree and showing everything to Hope one last time. "Of course." They stepped away into the hallway. "Amanda, yesterday you mentioned you've been looking for work for months." "Yes. Well, my office needs an administrative assistant. It's not a glamorous job, but it pays well and has benefits. Would you be interested?" Amanda looked at him, surprised. "Ethan, are you offering this out of pity?" "No. I'm offering because I need someone competent, and from our conversation yesterday, you have exactly the qualifications I'm looking for." Amanda hesitated. It was exactly the kind of opportunity she had been hoping for, but it was coming from Ethan, and she didn't want to mix her personal gratitude with work. "Can I think about it?" "Of course. There's no rush. But if you decide to accept, the job is yours." They returned to the living rooms where Grace was hugging the Christmas tree. "Ready to go, sweetie?" Amanda asked. "I guess so. Bye, beautiful tree. Bye, big house." On the way back, Grace fell asleep in the back seat, still holding Hope. The exhaustion from the exciting night had finally caught up with her. "Amanda," Ethan said quietly so as not to wake Grace, "last night was one of the best nights I've had in years." "For us too. Grace won't stop talking about it for weeks." "I hope you'll accept my job offer. It would be great to have you two around more often." Amanda looked back at Grace sleeping peacefully. "I'll think about it seriously." It would be a wonderful opportunity. When they arrived at Amanda's apartment, Grace woke up and said goodbye to Ethan with a hug. "Thank you for the best night of my life," she said. "Thank you too," Ethan replied, hugging her back. As he drove home, Ethan reflected on the last few hours. His house, which had always seemed perfectly adequate, now felt empty again. But there was something different. For the first time, He had people who cared about him for real. People who wanted his company not for what he could offer professionally, but simply for who he was. Grace's drawing was carefully stored on his nightstand. My new friend, the words echoed in his mind. Ethan smiled. Maybe he had finally found what he had been looking for without even knowing it. A family. Amanda took a deep breath before pushing open the glass door of the Carter & Associates law firm. It was her first week of work, and her nerves were still on edge. After 4 months of being unemployed, having a professional routine again felt almost surreal. "Good mornings, Amanda," said Sarah, the receptionist at Kai, with a welcoming smile. "How was your weekend?" "Quiet, thank you." Grace was excited, knowing I was coming back to work today. "That's great. Mr. Carter has already arrived and is waiting for you in his office." Amanda nodded and walked down the hall to Ethan's office. The walls were decorated with diplomas and professional photos, but she noticed a small change from last week. Grace's drawing, "My New Friend," was framed and hanging behind his desk. Ethan looked up when she knocked on the door. "Come in, Amanda. How are you feeling?" "Good. Still a little nervous, but excited to start." "That's natural. You'll settle in quickly. Today I want you to focus on the Morrison case files. They need to be reorganized chronologically." Amanda nodded, taking out her notepad to jot down the instructions. "Are all the documents in the file room?" "Most of them are. A few are still on my desk. Sarah can show you where everything is." During the first week, Amanda dedicated herself intensely to her work. The files were indeed disorganized, some dating back years. She created a logical system, sorting by date, document type, and relevance. It was exactly the kind of work she enjoyed, meticulous, organized, with visible results. Ethan would pass by the file room several times a day, always finding Amanda focused on her task. "How's it going?" he asked on Thursday. "Better than I expected. I found some important documents that were lost among other papers." "Really? Which ones?" Amanda showed him a folder with original contracts that had been filed incorrectly. These contracts from the Johnson case, they were mixed in with tax documents from 2018. Ethan examined the papers and his eyes widened. "Amanda, these documents? We looked for these for weeks last year. They were in the wrong folder. I've created a new color-coded system to prevent this from happening again." "You're incredible. Seriously." Amanda blushed slightly at the compliment. "It's just organization. I've always been good at it." By the second week, Amanda had settled into a comfortable routine. She arrived at 8 in the morning, organized her desk, checked the day's priorities with Ethan, and dedicated herself to her tasks. The office had a professional yet relaxed atmosphere, and she felt more and more at ease. It was on a Wednesday that Grace appeared at the office for the first time. "Mommy!" The girl's cheerful voice echoed through the reception area. Amanda quickly stood up from the desk where she was working. "Grace, what are you doing here?" "School let out early today because of the teachers' meeting. Mrs. Henderson said I could come get you here." Grace was holding Hope in one hand and her backpack in the other. Her eyes lit up when she saw the office. "Wow, is this where you work?" "It's so fancy." Sarah smiled from the reception desk. "She's even cuter in person." "Grace, I'm sorry," Amanda said, clearly worried. "Can she stay here for a few hours? I promise she won't bother anyone." "Of course she can." Ethan appeared in the hallway, smiling when he saw Grace. "Hi, Grace, how's Hope?" "Hi, Ethan." Grace ran to him and hugged him. "Hope is great. She wanted to see your office." "Then I'll give her a tour. Come with me." Ethan showed Grace around the office, explaining what each person did. Grace was fascinated by the copy machines, the computers, and especially the law library. "Why do you have so many books?" she asked. "Because laws are complicated. I have to study a lot to help people." "How do you help people?" "Well, sometimes people have problems and they need someone to defend them. I'm that someone." Grace nodded seriously. "Like a superhero, but with books instead of a cape." Ethan laughed. "Exactly. Like a superhero with books." Amanda watched the interaction from her workstation. Impressed by the patience Ethan showed with Grace, he truly seemed to enjoy the girl's company. Grace settled at a small table in the corner of Amanda's office with some coloring books and crayons. Hope was placed carefully in a chair beside her, as if she were also working. "Hope is going to help me draw," Grace explained to anyone who would listen. For the rest of the afternoon, Grace remained quiet, drawing and talking softly to Hope. Occasionally, she would get up to show her drawings to Amanda or to ask something about the work. "Mommy, what does contract mean?" she asked on one such occasion. "It's an agreement between people, like when you promise to clean your room in exchange for ice cream." "Oh," Grace went back to her drawings, seemingly satisfied with the explanation. Around 4 in the afternoon, Grace approached Ethan's desk where he was focused on some documents. "Ethan." "Hi, Grace. What's up?" "I made a drawing for you." She handed him a sheet of paper where she had drawn the office. There were figures representing Amanda, Ethan, Sarah, and even herself with Hope. At the top, in colorful letters, it said, "Mommy's work." "Grace, this is beautiful. Thank you. Can I tape it to your office wall?" "So you'll remember us when we're away." "Of course you can." Ethan taped the drawing on the wall next to "My New Friend." Grace beamed with pride seeing her 2 works of art on display. From that week on, Grace started showing up at the office occasionally. Always well behaved, always with Hope, always bringing drawings or little gifts she made at school. Amanda initially worried that Grace might be a bother, but she soon realized that everyone in the office loved the girl's presence. Sarah always kept some treats at her desk for when Grace appeared. The other lawyers in the office would stop to chat with her and see her drawings. "She lights up this place," commented Marcus, one of the partners, one afternoon when Grace was coloring at Amanda's desk. "True," agreed Jennifer, another lawyer. "I've never seen Ethan smile so much." And it was true. Grace's presence transformed the atmosphere of the office. Ethan, who had always been cordial but distant with his employees, began to show more interest in the people around him. He would ask about his colleagues, families, remember birthdays, and participate more in casual conversations. One Thursday, Grace arrived at the office with a question that made everyone laugh. "Ethan, why do lawyers wear suits?" she asked, watching him adjust his tie. "Well, it's a tradition. It shows seriousness and professionalism. But you're not more serious when you're in a suit. You're the same, Ethan. You have a point. It's more about appearance. Like when I wear my nice dress for special occasions." "Exactly like that." Grace thought for a moment. "Hope thinks you'd look good no matter what. Hope is very wise." Amanda watched these interactions with growing admiration. Ethan had infinite patience with Grace, always taking her questions seriously, never treating her like a bothersome child, and Grace, in turn, had grown attached to him in a way Amanda had never seen before. On a Friday, 3 weeks after Amanda had started working, Ethan called her into his office at the end of the day. "Amanda, I want to talk to you about your performance." Amanda's heart quickened. Was it a complaint? "Of course. I want you to know that you are doing an exceptional job. The file organization is impeccable. You found important documents that were lost, and your efficiency is impressive." Amanda sighed in relief. "Thank you. I'm really enjoying the work." "That's great, because I'd like to offer you some additional responsibilities, if you're interested. Nothing that will overwhelm you, but a few tasks that show my confidence in your abilities." "What kind of tasks?" "Client correspondence, organizing my schedule, maybe sitting in on some meetings to take notes." "What do you think?" "I would love that. Thank you for the trust. You deserve it. And Amanda." "Yes?" "Grace will always be welcome here. She brings a positive energy that we all appreciate." Amanda smiled. "She really enjoys coming here. I think she feels important helping her mom at work. She is always welcome." That night at home, Grace was particularly excited. "Mommy, Ethan taught me how to use the coffee machine today." "Really?" "Yes, and he said that when I grow up, I can work with you guys if I want." Amanda laughed. "You're only 7. You still have a lot of time to decide what you want to be when you grow up." "I know, but it would be cool to work with you. Hope would like it too." A few weeks later, Amanda realized her life had completely changed, not just financially, although the steady salary had allowed her to worry less about basic bills. The change was deeper. She woke up excited to go to work. She felt useful, valued, part of something important, and Grace seemed happier too. The girl now had stories to tell about Mommy's office, drawings inspired by the people she met there, and a sense of stability she hadn't had in months. One afternoon, while organizing some contracts, Amanda paused to watch Grace drawing at the desk next to hers. The girl was concentrating, her tongue sticking out slightly at the corner of her mouth as she colored carefully. "What are you thinking about?" Ethan asked, appearing beside Amanda. "About how much our life has changed in the last few weeks. For the better. Much for the better. It's not just the job, Ethan. It's the stability, the feeling of having a place where we belong." "You do belong here." Grace looked up from her drawing. "Ethan, do you want to see what I'm doing?" Of course. It was another drawing of the office, but this time there were more details. Each person was clearly identified. Each desk was in the right place. Even the coffee machine was represented. "Guy, it's getting very good," Ethan said. "You're becoming a real artist. Hope helps me with the colors." "Of course she does." Amanda watched Ethan kneel beside Grace to get a better look at the drawing. His patience, the genuine interest he showed. The way he included Hope in conversations as if the doll were real, all of it touched Amanda's heart deeply. She wasn't in love with Ethan, not yet, but she felt a gratitude and affection that grew every day. He wasn't just the boss who had given her a job opportunity. He was becoming an important part of their lives, someone they could trust, someone who genuinely cared about their well-being. And Grace, who had always been cautious with male figures due to her father's absence, had found in Ethan a positive male presence, someone who listened to her, valued her ideas, and made her feel special. At the end of that day, as Amanda was tidying her desk to go home, Ethan approached her. "Amanda, can I ask you a personal question?" "Of course." "Are you two happy?" "I mean, are you adjusting well to the new routine?" Amanda smiled. "Ethan, we don't have words to thank you for everything you've done for us. You didn't just give us a job. You gave us hope. You've given me much more than you can imagine." "How so?" "You brought life to this place, to my life. I didn't realize how empty it was until I met you." Grace approached, holding Hope. "We're ready, Mommy." "Yes, sweetie." "Ethan, tomorrow is Saturday. Do you want to have lunch with us at our place? I can make my famous peanut butter sandwich." Amanda laughed. "Grace, maybe Ethan has other plans." "Actually, I'd love that." "If it's not an inconvenience." "It's never an inconvenience," Grace said immediately. "Hope wants you to come too." As they left the office that afternoon, Amanda reflected on how life had taken unexpected turns. A few months ago, she was unemployed, worried about the future, watching Grace grow up without the opportunities she wanted to provide. Now she had a job she loved, in an environment where she felt valued. Grace was thriving, more confident, happier, and Ethan had become an essential part of their lives in a way she could never have imagined. The bond between the three was growing naturally, organically, based on mutual respect, genuine affection, and the simple joy of being in each other's company. Amanda didn't know exactly where this path would lead them, but for the first time in a long time, she was eager to find out. "How about we go out for dinner tonight?" Ethan asked one Friday, as Amanda was clearing her desk to leave. Grace, who was putting her drawings into her backpack, immediately looked up. "Really? At a real restaurant?" "At a real restaurant," Ethan confirmed, smiling. "I know a very nice, family-friendly place. Would you like to go?" Amanda hesitated for a moment. They didn't have suitable clothes for expensive restaurants. "Ethan, we don't want to be a bother." "It's a casual place," he said, sensing her concern. "Nothing formal. And it would be a pleasure to have your company." Grace tugged on her mother's sleeve. "Please, Mommy, Hope has never been to a restaurant." Amanda laughed. "All right." That would be lovely. The restaurant Ethan chose was perfect. It was neither too fancy nor too simple, with cozy decor and a family atmosphere. There were other families dining, children chatting excitedly, a relaxed vibe that made Amanda feel at ease immediately. "It's beautiful in here," Grace exclaimed as they sat at the table. "Can I look at all the lights, Hope?" She placed the doll in the chair next to her, as she always did at home. "Can Hope order food too?" Grace asked seriously. "Of course, she can," Ethan replied, playing along. What would she like to eat? Grace leaned close to the doll, pretending to hear a whisper. She said she wants spaghetti. It's her favorite food. Excellent choice, said the waiter, who had approached just in time to hear the conversation. And for the real little girl, Grace laughed. Spaghetti too, please. Amanda ordered a chicken salad, and Ethan chose a salmon dish. While they waited for their food, they talked about everything and nothing. Ethan, Grace began, fiddling with her napkin, do you have a family? Amanda tensed slightly at her daughter's direct question. Grace, that's very personal. It's okay, Ethan said softly. I have a father, but we haven't spoken in a long time. Why? Grace asked with the innocent curiosity of children. Well, sometimes adults argue and stop talking for a while. That's sad, Grace said, nodding seriously. Do you miss him? Ethan paused for a moment, clearly touched by the question. Sometimes, yes. Then why don't you call him? Grace, Amanda intervened gently. Sometimes situations are more complicated than they seem. I know, Grace said. Sure, but if you miss him, he probably misses you too. The simplicity of Grace's observation hit Ethan hard. He looked at the 7-year-old girl who had just given him advice that many adults wouldn't have the courage to offer. You are very wise for your age, he said. The food arrived, and the mood lightened. Grace was delighted with her spaghetti, trying to twirl the strands on her fork like she saw in the movies. Amanda helped her, laughing when Grace got sauce all over herself. Hope is getting messy too, Grace commented, carefully wiping the doll's mouth with her napkin. She's eating very well, Ethan observed. It's because she's happy. She's never eaten in such a beautiful place. During dinner, they talked about work, Grace's school, and plans for the weekend. It was a natural, flowing conversation, as if they were truly a family meeting for dinner out. Amanda watched Ethan interact with Grace. He listened to the girl's every word with genuine attention, answered her questions with patience, and included hope in the conversation as if it were natural. There was nothing forced or artificial in his behavior. My tummy is full, Grace announced, leaning back in her chair. Do you want dessert? Ethan asked. Grace's eyes lit up. Can I choose? Of course. Grace examined the dessert menu seriously, consulting Hope in whispers. Hope wants chocolate ice cream, but I want strawberry pie. Can we share both? Of course you can. When the desserts arrived, Grace insisted that everyone try a little of each. That way everyone is happy, she explained. Amanda tried the ice cream and made a funny face. It's so cold, Grace laughed out loud. Mummy, you always make that face with ice cream. Ethan watched the interaction between mother and daughter, the obvious love between them, the ease with which they played with each other. It was something he had never experienced in his own childhood. You two are very close, he commented. Mommy is my best friend, Grace said simply. Well, her and Hope. And you're mine, sweetie, Amanda replied, kissing the top of Grace's head. Ethan felt a pang of something he couldn't immediately identify. It wasn't envy, exactly. It was more like a longing for something he had never had. After dinner, they walked slowly to the car. Grace was tired but happy, holding Hope with one hand and Ethan's hand with the other. This was the best dinner of my life, she said. Hope thought so too. It was special for me too, Ethan said, and it was true. In the car, Grace quickly fell asleep in the back seat, still hugging Hope. Amanda and Ethan drove in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Ethan, Amanda said softly, thank you for tonight. Grace will be talking about this for weeks. I should be thanking you. It's been a long time since I felt so relaxed. How so? Ethan stopped at a red light and turned to look at her. You two made me realize what I was missing. My whole life has been built around work, professional success. I never stopped to think about family and about real relationships. You're still young. You have time to build all of that. Maybe. But first, I need to sort out some things from my past. Amanda watched him with curiosity but didn't press. If he wanted to talk about it, he would when he felt ready. When they arrived at Amanda's apartment, Ethan carried a sleeping Grace in his arms up to the apartment. The girl mumbled something about chocolate ice cream on the way, making them smile. Let me put her to bed, Amanda said quietly. Ethan waited in the living room while Amanda tucked Grace in. When she came back, he was still there, looking at Grace's drawings taped to the wall. "She really has talent," he said. "She does. She's always been creative." They stood in the small living room, a comfortable silence between them. "Can Amanda," Ethan began, his voice more serious, "can I tell you something?" "Of course." "Tonight, at the restaurant, watching you two, I felt like part of a family for the first time in my life." Amanda's heart beat a little faster. "Ethan, let me finish," he said softly. "You have opened my heart. But to move forward, I need to resolve old hurts that I carry with me." "What kind of hurts?" Ethan sighed. "My father, our relationship ended very painfully. He did things that deeply hurt our family. My mother never recovered, and I carried that anger for years." Amanda moved a little closer. "Do you want to talk about it?" "Not today. But I need to resolve this situation before I allow my feelings for you to grow any more than they already have." Amanda nodded, understanding. "You'll do what you need to in your own time. Thank you for understanding." Ethan headed for the door but stopped before leaving. "Amanda." "Yes, tonight was perfect. You are a beautiful family, and any man would be lucky to be a part of it." "Ethan," but he was already gone, leaving Amanda alone in the living room with her heart pounding and a feeling that something important had changed between them that night. She went to the bedroom to check on Grace, who was sleeping soundly, hugging Hope. On the little girl's face was a small smile, as if she were still dreaming of the special dinner. Amanda gently touched her daughter's forehead. They had truly found something special in Ethan, but she understood that he needed to resolve his past before he could build a future with them, and she was willing to wait. Ethan stood in front of the house for almost 10 minutes. It was a simple one-story house with a small front garden that showed signs of care but also of age. The flowers were planted lovingly, but there was a sadness in the air he could feel even from the outside. He hadn't set foot there in 8 years. Grace's words echoed in his mind. "If you miss him, he probably misses you too." The simplicity of the girl's observation had haunted him for days, until he finally decided to do something about it. He took a deep breath and walked to the door. His hands trembled slightly as he pressed the doorbell. Slow footsteps approached from the other side of the door. When it opened, Ethan came face to face with his father for the first time in 8 years. Robert Carter had aged visibly. His hair, once just graying, was now completely white. There were deep wrinkles around his eyes and a slump in his shoulders that hadn't been there before. But it was the eyes that shocked Ethan the most. There was a sadness there, a melancholy that seemed to have taken up permanent residence. "Ethan!" Robert's voice came out as a disbelieving whisper. "Hi, Dad." For a moment, they just looked at each other. Robert looked as if he were seeing a ghost. You really came. Come in, please, come in." The house was exactly as Ethan remembered, but smaller. Or maybe he had grown, and his memories had made the place seem bigger. The family photographs still decorated the walls, including many pictures of Ethan as a child and teenager. "Can I get you some coffee?" "Tea?" Robert asked, clearly nervous. "Coffee is fine." While Robert made coffee in the kitchen, Ethan walked through the living room. He stopped in front of a photo of himself on his law school graduation day. Robert had been there, proud, smiling. That was before everything fell apart. "I saved all the newspaper clippings about you," Robert said, returning with 2 cups. "About your cases, your victories in court." "I was always proud." "You had no right to be proud," Ethan said, his voice harsher than he intended. Robert looked down. "I know." They sat in opposite armchairs, a heavy silence between them. Ethan noticed there was only one dirty cup on the coffee table, only one worn spot on the sofa. His father was living there alone, probably had been for years. "Why did you come?" Robert finally asked. "Good question," Ethan said, taking a sip of coffee. "I met a girl, a little 7-year-old girl. She asked me a simple question that I couldn't stop thinking about." Robert waited. "She asked me why I didn't call you if I missed you." "And do you?" Ethan hesitated. I miss the father you were before you destroyed our family." The words landed like daggers, and Robert visibly flinched. "Ethan, No," Ethan interrupted, standing up abruptly. "You're going to listen to me first. I've spent 8 years avoiding this conversation, but now I'm here, so we're going to have it." Robert nodded silently. "Your betrayal drove Mom to depression, and to her death," Ethan said, his voice breaking slightly. "I couldn't forgive you. That's why I stayed away." The words hung in the air like toxic smoke. Robert covered his face with his hands, and Ethan could hear a muffled sound that took him a moment to realize was sobbing. "Do you think I don't know that?" Robert finally said, his voice hoarse. "Do you think a single day goes by when I don't think about it?" "Then why did you do it?" Ethan asked, his own voice thick with emotion. "Why did you destroy our family? Mom loved you more than anything in the world." Robert got up and walked to the window, his back to Ethan. "I was an idiot. An insecure, middle-aged man who felt validated by a younger woman. It was the biggest mistake of my life." "That's no excuse." "It's not an excuse," Robert agreed, turning to face his son. "It's a pathetic explanation for the biggest mistake I ever made." Ethan felt tears burning his eyes. For years, he had imagined this conversation, had rehearsed what he would say, how he would confront his father. But now, seeing the broken man before him, the words seemed inadequate. "I loved her," Robert continued, his voice breaking. "Your mother was everything to me, but I was weak, selfish, and when she found out, she never recovered," Ethan finished. "No. And neither did I." Robert walked to a shelf and picked up a photo of his wife. "I destroyed the woman I loved most. I carry that guilt every day, but I want to reconcile with you before it's too late." "Too late for what?" Robert pointed to some medicine bottles on the coffee table. "The doctors say I have maybe 2 years. Cancer." Ethan felt as if he had been punched in the stomach. "What?" "I found out 6 months ago. Maybe it's divine justice." "Don't say that." "Why not? It's true. I killed your mother with my betrayal and neglect. Maybe it's time to pay for it." Ethan sat down heavily on the sofa. All the angry words he had stored up for years seemed to vanish. In front of him was a sick, lonely man, carrying a weight of guilt that had obviously been consuming him for years. "Dad, I didn't come looking for you because I thought it was for the best," Robert continued. "I thought you'd be happier without me in your life. But when I found out about the illness, I just wanted to see you one more time. To ask for your forgiveness." "Are you getting treatment?" "I am, but it's not working very well." They sat in silence for several minutes. Ethan stared at his hands, processing everything he had heard. "I hated you for 8 years, he finally said. "I deserve your hatred." "Maybe. But carrying this hatred is killing me on the inside too." Robert looked up, a spark of hope shining in his eyes. "Ethan, I know I have no right to ask for anything, but if there's even a small chance you could forgive me, I don't know if I can. I understand, but I can try," Ethan added softly. Robert let out a shaky breath. "That's more than I deserve." "You're right. It is more than you deserve. But maybe it's not about what you deserve." Ethan stood up and walked to the window. Outside, a family was passing on the sidewalk. Father, mother, and a little girl skipping beside them. The scene made him think of Grace, of Amanda, of how they had changed his perspective on family and forgiveness. "Wounded, I've met people who have taught me about second chances," he said, "about how holding on to anger only hurts ourselves." "Who are these people?" Ethan smiled for the first time since he arrived. "A brave woman and a 7-year-old girl who is wiser than most adults. Are they special to you?" "Very special." Robert nodded, understanding there was more to this story than Ethan was letting on. "Do they know you came here today?" "No. This is something I needed to do alone." "Are you going to tell them?" Ethan thought for a moment. "Yes. They deserve to know." "Ethan," Robert said hesitantly, "do you think someday you could tell me about them, about your life?" Ethan looked at his father. There was so much regret in the older man's eyes, so much desire to reconnect, to try to fix what he had broken. "Maybe," he said. "With time. Time is something I may not have much of. Then let's see how far we can get with the time we have." Robert nodded, tears streaming silently down his face. "Thank you," he whispered, "for giving me this chance." Ethan approached his father and, after a moment's hesitation, hugged him. It was a painful embrace, full of years of hurt but also of a small seed of hope. "I'll try, Dad. I can't promise more than that. It's all I can ask for." When Ethan left the house an hour later, he felt emotionally exhausted. But there was something different, too. The weight he had been carrying on his shoulders for 8 years felt slightly lighter. He hadn't completely forgiven his father. Maybe he never would, but he had taken the first step. And that, for now, was enough. On the way home, he thought about Amanda and Grace. They had been the catalyst for this reconciliation. Grace's innocent wisdom, Amanda's example of strength and forgiveness. All of it had helped him find the courage to face his past. Now maybe he could finally build a future. In the weeks following the meeting with his father, Ethan felt different. It was as if a knot he had carried in his chest for years had finally begun to unravel. The weight of the anger that had consumed him had lessened, leaving room for other emotions to grow. And those emotions were all connected to Amanda and Grace. Ethan began to spend more time with them. Not just the casual encounters at the office or the occasional dinners, but deliberate, intentional moments. Saturdays at the park, Sunday afternoons watching movies, simple walks through the neighborhood where Grace could play with hope. "Ethan," Amanda said on one of these walks, as Grace ran ahead with her doll, "you seem different lately." "How so?" "Lighter. As if something has changed." Ethan smiled. "Something has changed. I talked to my father." Amanda stopped walking, surprised. "Really? How did it go?" "Difficult, painful, but necessary." They continued walking as Ethan told her about the meeting, about his father's illness, about the first hesitant steps toward forgiveness. Grace was right, he concluded, about missing him and about him probably missing me too. She has that intuition about people. She always has. That afternoon, while Grace played on the playground, Amanda and Ethan sat on a nearby bench. "Ethan," Amanda began hesitantly, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Where are we going? I mean, us. This situation." Ethan understood the question. They had become very close, closer than just friends, but neither of them had verbalized what was happening between them. "I'd like us to go where our hearts are leading us," he said softly. "And where is your heart leading you?" Ethan looked at Grace, who was helping another, smaller child climb the slide. "To you, always to you." "I love you both," he said simply. "Size, I don't know when it happened exactly, but it did. I love Grace as if she were my own daughter, and I love you in a way I never thought possible." Amanda took his hand. "I love you too. And Grace, well, Grace adopted you a long time ago." They laughed, watching Grace, who was now organizing a game with several other children. On a Thursday afternoon, as the three of them were walking home from the office, Grace did something none of them expected. She stopped in the middle of the sidewalk and took Amanda's and Ethan's hands, one on each side. "Wait," she said, with a seriousness unusual for a 7-year-old. They stopped, looking down at her. Grace looked at Amanda, then at Ethan, then at the hands she was holding. "We're making a real family," she said, with the absolute conviction that only children possess. The words hit Amanda and Ethan like a lightning bolt. It was exactly what they were both feeling but hadn't found the words to express. Amanda felt her eyes fill with tears. Grace, it's true, isn't it?" Grace continued, looking between the two adults. "We love each other, we take care of each other, we're always together. Isn't that what a family is?" Ethan knelt to get on Grace's level, still holding her small hand. "That's exactly what a family is," he said, his voice slightly hoarse with emotion. "And so are we a real family now?" "If you want us to be," Ethan said. "I do," Grace exclaimed, jumping for joy. "Hope wants it too." Amanda bent down and hugged Grace and Ethan at the same time. There, on the sidewalk of an ordinary street, the three of them hugged like the family they had become. The following months passed like a dream. Grace blossomed even more. Her drawings now always included 3 figures, Mommy, Ethan, and her, usually with Hope somewhere in the scene. At school, she talked about "my dad Ethan" with pride. Amanda had never felt so complete. She had spent years raising Grace alone, being strong out of necessity. Now with Ethan, she could share responsibilities, she could be cared for while she cared for others. And Ethan had discovered that everything he had worked for, professional success, money, recognition, paled in comparison to coming home and finding Grace doing her homework at the kitchen table while Amanda cooked dinner. The relationship with his father had also gradually improved. Robert began to visit occasionally, always shy, always grateful for whatever time Ethan gave him. Grace had immediately taken to Grandpa Robert, treating him with the same unconditional acceptance she showed everyone she loved. When December came around again, almost a year after that first school Christmas party where it all began, Ethan made a suggestion. "How about we spend Christmas at my house this year, all of us together?" "All of us?" Amanda asked. "You, me, Grace, my dad, a real family dinner." Grace clapped her hands excitedly. "Can we decorate the big tree together?" "Of course we can." On Christmas Eve, they gathered at Ethan's house. Amanda had officially moved in a few weeks earlier. Her things had blended naturally with Ethan's, and Grace had transformed one of the guest rooms into her own space. They started by decorating the Christmas tree. Robert had arrived early, bringing ornaments that had belonged to Ethan's mother, stored for years in dusty boxes. "Your mother would have loved to see this," Robert said softly, watching Ethan help Grace place a golden star on a high branch. "She would have loved Grace," Ethan agreed. Grace was in her element, directing the decorating with the seriousness of an art director. "Hope thinks we need more lights on this side," she announced, pointing to the doll as if it had actually spoken. "Hope is right," Amanda said, adjusting some lights. "Hope is always right," Robert agreed, joining in the game naturally. When the tree was finished, they stepped back to admire the result. It was beautiful, but more importantly, it had been decorated with love by people who cared for one another. "It's perfect," Grace declared. The dinner was served at the dining table, which for the first time, was completely full. Amanda had cooked ours with help from Grace and Robert. Ethan had contributed his specialty, salad, the only thing he knew how to make without burning it. "A family of cooks," Grace commented, tasting the turkey, "except for Ethan." "Hey!" Ethan protested, laughing. "My salad is good." "It is," Amanda agreed, kissing his cheek. "But maybe you should learn to make a few more things." "Grace can teach me," Ethan said. "She already makes impressive sandwiches." "It's true. I can teach you how to make a gourmet peanut butter sandwich." Robert watched the interaction with a smile. It was the first time in years he had felt part of a family again. "Ethan," he said during a pause in the conversation, "thank you for including me tonight." "Your family, Dad." "Of course he is," Grace added. "Hope likes you a lot." During dinner, they talked about everything: work, school, plans for the new year, funny memories. It was exactly what a family dinner should be: loud, affectionate, full of laughter and love. As they were finishing dessert, Grace looked around the table with a thoughtful expression. "Now everyone is together," she said, smiling. Amanda felt her heart tighten with emotion. She held Ethan's hand under the table, and he intertwined his fingers with hers. Ethan smiled, feeling his eyes well up with tears. A year ago, he was alone in his silent apartment, living an empty life of professional success. Now, he was surrounded by people who loved him for who he was, not for what he had. "Grace is right," he said, his voice slightly hoarse. Now everyone is together. Robert was also emotional. After years of loneliness and guilt, he had been forgiven, accepted, included in a new family. "Thank you," he whispered to Ethan. "Thank you all," Ethan replied, looking at each person at the table, "for teaching me what really matters in life." Grace raised her glass of juice. "A toast," she announced. "To our real family." Everyone raised their glasses. Juice for Grace, wine for the adults. "To our real family," they repeated in unison. Later that night, after Robert had left and Grace was asleep with Hope, Amanda and Ethan sat in the living room, watching the Christmas tree twinkle in the dark. "A year ago, could you have imagined this?" Amanda asked, nestled in Ethan's arms. "Never. A year ago, I didn't even know it was possible to be this happy." Grace was right from the beginning. We really did become a real family. Ethan kissed the top of Amanda's head. The best family I could have ever asked for. The simple table, surrounded by laughter and human warmth, had been proof that the wounds of the past had given way to a new life, a life built on love, forgiveness, and the innocent wisdom of a 7-year-old girl who saw what the adults took so long to realize. They were indeed a real family. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ones. Leave a like because it helps this story get recommended to more people. See you in the next story.